What is up, true crimeers? It's your boy Mike, coming at you with another true crime video. Oh god, can you imagine if I did my intros as like the old school YouTube thing? Do they still do that? Do people still do that on here? What is up, you guys? At any rate, true crimeers, in the photograph you see next to me, there is an image of a young man trying to withdraw money from an ATM. And standing directly next to him is his killer. Hello, true crimeers. This is another no longer unsolved mysteries case, and it is the case of Matthew Chase. Viewer discretion is advised. Matthew Chase was born in Medford, Oregon, and that was on April 10th, 1966. He grew up in a wonderful home. He was well taken care of. Parents loved him. He had nice, great siblings. He grew up to have like a really big personality. He was very animated, and people got the vibe that he was really meant for entertainment. His friend said he just had the biggest and best sense of humor. He could take any situation that was, bad and turn it into something silly by injecting his humor. He was described as an excellent and perfect friend. Someone who would listen to you, who would give you advice, and who would cheer you up when you needed a smile. If you were friends with Matt, he made sure that you felt like you were the most important person in the room and that you were loved. Matt also dabbled in singing and acting, and quite honestly, it could have led to something like a career for him. But sadly, we'll never get to find that out. But in school, he did perform in several plays and productions, and typically, he would actually be cast as the lead character in the majority of these plays. He had that stage presence. He was like he just had like that leading man, mentality. The pictures you see in this video are just kind of several pictures of like him and his castmates, fellow schoolmates. There's not really a lot of individual photos I could find of him, only a couple. A funny story that I saw on actually a Justice for Matthew Chase Facebook page, one of his friends told a story that for prom, Matt either didn't have or didn't want to bring a human date to prom, so instead he brought a headless mannequin wearing like this fabulous dress to prom. And he himself had on this like really snazzy suit, sunglasses. He looks really cool. But it really kind of showcases, one, his personality, and two, just how confident of a person he was. Didn't really seem to care what people thought of him. Shortly after graduating high school, when he was 17 years old, he would move from Medford down to Los Angeles, California, because he wanted to be near Hollywood. And he actually moved there with his two friends, who were, the friends were brother and sister, and their names were Teresa and Steve Dahl. The three of them had been like really good best friends, really, since they were all kids. They went to school together, and so they just sort of lived their lives together. And they all got a place there in LA. Fast forward a few years later, it's now 1988, and Matt is a 22-year-old who is just getting by doing, job to job until he can reach his dream. On the night of June 8th, 1988, Matt, along with his friend/roommate Teresa, they went out to a late dinner. And according to Teresa, they got home sometime around 11:45 p.m. that night. When they walked in, Matt noticed that his paycheck was still in the envelope on like the table near the front door. He had completely just spaced out and forgotten to deposit it earlier in the day. So he picked it up and he told Teresa, hey, I'm going to go walk down to the bank real quick to deposit my paycheck. But With it being, pretty much midnight at this point, Teresa was not comfortable with just letting him walk down to the bank. So she offers to let him drive her car because he doesn't have a car at this point. And her car was like a little red 1983 Volkswagen GTI. She asked him, "Hey, while you're, after you deposit your check, can you run by the corner store to pick up a small bag of cat food for the cat?" He said, "Yep, of course I can." So he left the house sometime around 11:45 p.m. and the whole trip, because the bank was only like a block or two away from their house and the convenience store was just down the street. So this whole thing really should have only taken 15, 20 minutes tops. But Matt, after 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, still hadn't gotten home. After an hour or so, Teresa figured, Matt's probably just driving around town just to, get some fresh air with the windows down and just sort of clear his mind or whatever. So she goes to bed. But when Teresa wakes up in the morning, her and her brother Steve notice that Matt still isn't home. When they go out to the driveway, the car isn't there, which is super unusual. It's not like Matt to just sort of take the car and go on some random adventure because it wasn't his car. And he wouldn't do that without asking Teresa first. So the siblings become immediately concerned. So they call police and they try to report Matt missing. Police are like, well, he's a 22-year-old guy. Let's just give it maybe a day or so, and then, we'll go from there if he still hasn't shown up. So what Teresa, and specifically Steve, does at that point, they kind of take charge themselves because they just feel something is super off. So Steve calls Matt's bank, and Steve and Teresa happen to know like his personal information, including his social security number. So they pretend that they are Matt calling the bank, and they say like, "Oh, my bank card was stolen. Can you see if anyone's used it?" And so the bank, thinking they're talking to Matt, does give them some information that after midnight, the bank card was attempted to be used several times, but it was rejected. So the siblings, would go back to police and say, "Listen, someone's using his card. He's a no-show. The money isn't coming out of his account. Something is wrong." Police agree, and they look further into the bank situation. Police do find out that just a few minutes before midnight, Matt did successfully deposit his paycheck into his account through an ATM. Now, it would take probably a day or so for that check to clear. Matt, at that point, he had actually less than $100 in his bank account. But 30 minutes after he makes the initial deposit of the check, he goes back to the same ATM and he tries to withdraw $280. It's immediately rejected, one, because he doesn't have the funds, and two, he wasn't allowed to withdraw that much money from the ATM in a given day. That was just sort of, they still have policies like that now, but I think the amount's a lot higher. But Matt knew that. He knew exactly how much he was allowed to take out, and he knew exactly what he had in his account. Police found it a little strange that he tried to take out $280, so they thought, well, is this some sort of signal that Matt is sending us? Several minutes later, there is activity at another ATM. Matt is now trying to take out $200 even from his account, and it is rejected for insufficient funds. Then, 1 minute later, at the exact same ATM, he tries to withdraw $100. Again, rejected. He does not have the funds. Again, police are now like, he knows how much money he has. He knows the check isn't going to be posted for a day or so. This has got to be Matt's doing some kind of message, right? 11 minutes after that one, there is activity at another ATM. And again, it's rejected. But this ATM, unlike the other ones before it, has a camera built in. So police, they get in touch with the bank to get photos from the ATM, and the bank gives them the pictures. The image shows two men. One is confirmed by friends and coworkers to be that of Matt. He is the one on the right side of the photo. On the left side of the photo is another man, a man that his friends and coworkers do not recognize. They have no clue who it is. Police believe that this man had abducted Matt and was trying to force him to take money out of the ATM. And they likely also, at this point, because the car hasn't been found either, they likely stole Teresa's car. In the image, he is seen basically hovering next to or maybe slightly behind Matt, possibly trying to see what his PIN number is. In context, it's actually a really frightening image. It's very haunting, very chilling to see this. Police describe this man as being short, definitely shorter than Matt, and they also describe him as a little bigger, a little chunkier. There are no weapons seen in the image, but it is presumed that in order for them to control Matt, this person likely had a gun, possibly a knife. They would try to enhance the image as best as they possibly could, but it really didn't produce that much better of an image. So then they basically made a composite drawing of the man. They kind of did like two separate ones. And they showed these around to, again, Matt's friends, coworkers, even his family. And no one recognized the man at all. You know, it's kind of hard because this is just sort of like an angled side profile. So it's really hard to say for sure, you know, like that is so-and-so. But after the images were released to the public, there were no tips. There were no leads or anything. Within about a day and a half of Matt going missing, there was more activity in his bank account. Up to $400 had been taken out of his account because his paycheck had posted within 24 hours or so of him depositing it. The $400 came out before the bank was able to freeze the card and freeze the account. But once the account was frozen, the last ATM the person tried to use it at, which did not have a camera, the ATM took the card. It confiscated it. And so police were able to get the ATM card and they dusted it for fingerprints, but it came up with nothing. It did not appear to have any fingerprints, so either it suggests that it was cleaned or maybe the guy who used it last was wearing gloves. So the detectives theorized that what happened was that Matt got to the ATM just before midnight, deposited his check, and lurking in the shadows somewhere nearby was an unknown man. A stranger, a creepster, a killer. This person likely accosted Matt with some sort of weapon to gain control over him, and then subsequently kidnapped him and drove him around trying to get money out of the account. Money that Matt knew he didn't have, so this potential suspect probably thought Matt was just lying to him or something. And he was likely trying to obtain the PIN number from Matt. And maybe, just a theory, maybe Matt thought that once he provided the PIN number, he would be killed. So maybe he wasn't giving him the information right away. So Matt's family now flies down from Oregon to help in any way they can to find their son. They, along with his friends and roommates, they are hoping against all hope that maybe Matt got really badly injured and he was in a hospital. So they called every hospital, clinic, urgent care, what have you, and nobody matching Matt's description. They showed him his photo. No one matching his description was treated at any point that anyone could remember. They also possibly thought, well, maybe this assailant hit Matt over the head to render him unconscious, and maybe he hit him so hard that Matt got amnesia. Maybe he's lost his memory and now he's wandering around the streets. It's not exactly an impossible idea. That thing has happened before many times. They were just holding out hope that Matt was still alive somewhere. So they started to show his photo around to homeless shelters and areas where homeless people kind of gravitated. And they actually got a few people that said, hey, I think we did see him at a homeless shelter. And so they would go to that shelter, and it would turn out that they confirmed it was actually someone else. It was not Matt. 2 weeks go by, no trace of Matt. But on June 27th, 1988, police receive a tip that kind of in the area where Matt was originally likely kidnapped at the first ATM, a car was found abandoned. And it was a little red 1983 Volkswagen, the same car that belonged to Teresa Dahl, Matt's roommate. And when the police got to the car and Teresa was, called in, it was confirmed to be her vehicle. They swept the car for evidence. They dusted it for fingerprints. Nothing. It's pretty obvious that whoever was driving it last wiped the car down pretty good to eliminate any traces of themselves. Except in the back seat was a blue bandana. It was confirmed that this did not belong to Matt, and it did not belong to Teresa or her brother Steve. So police believe that this bandana belonged to whoever kidnapped Matt, or possibly an accomplice. The bandana had letters written on it. The letters ES, and then PBS, and then CLS. Police, I guess, were able to pretty much theorize that whoever owned this bandana likely was also a member of a local gang. I guess they looked into this gang theory that maybe a gang member did it, but they weren't able at the time to come up with any leads on which gang member, or even if it truly was the gang member. Police would run through every tip, every lead, but ultimately this case would go cold pretty quickly. That is until September 17th, 1988, about 3 months after Matt goes missing. A couple of people are walking near a ravine in Pasadena, California, and they notice something floating in the ravine. It's a body. When the police and coroner arrives, the body is pretty decomposed. It's almost impossible to tell who it is visually. So they were able to determine, though, that this person had been dead for about 3 months. The coroner speculates sometime in early to mid-June, which would line up perfectly with Matt's disappearance. The individual was killed by a gunshot wound to the head. Now, I guess it took some time to collect the appropriate dental records. I'm not 100% sure, but on March 29th, 1989, the body was officially identified due to dental records of Matthew Chase. They speculate that Matt was killed sometime probably shortly after that final ATM transaction didn't go through. And so the person took Matt possibly to the location where he was found and shot him. To which this person got roughly $400 out of this whole thing. Matt Chase, 22-year-old young man with a very promising life ahead of him, was murdered for about $400. But police were no closer to identifying who his killer was. And if it was a gang member, certainly no one's going to rat them out because that's dangerous for them to do. Matt's father would follow up with police like every week. He would follow up his own tips and his own leads. He was just making sure that Matt's case was active. But sadly, on August 31st, 2007, Matt's father would pass away at the age of 67, never knowing who killed his son. And that is just beyond heartbreaking to me. I just can't imagine. Matt's sister basically picked up where her dad left off. And it actually wouldn't be until 2018, 30 years after Matt was murdered, that police would suddenly come out with a massive break in the case. Not a break, a solution. police announced that 20-year-old David Meza was Matt Chase's killer. David Meza will go by the nickname Bear. I don't have any pictures of this man. I cannot find any. I've been looking, not confirmed photos. But David Meza at the time was a 20-year-old man who was, in fact, a part of a gang. It was David Meza's girlfriend who would come forward to police to identify the man in the ATM photo, and she was confident that that was her boyfriend, David Meza. She was positive that it was him. So, where is David Meza? Well, he's dead. On June 10th, 1988, just 2 days after Matt disappeared, David Meza is shot and killed in a drive-by shooting by possibly rival gang members. If David was Matt's killer, he ain't going to confess to it now. I don't know exactly how the revelation came out. I don't know when the girlfriend, when she came forward. Obviously, it wasn't way back then. It had to have been around the time this all was announced in 2018. So even after he had been dead himself for nearly 30 years, or for 30 years, I don't know why she wouldn't come forward sooner. I'm not sure. I just know that she was questioned by police, and she confirmed the man in the photo was him. And then police have said that they have then circumstantial evidence, now that they have the identity of the man, that all points to him being the killer. So they closed the case and said that David Meza was their guy. Now, even though they closed the case, they have also stated that they do not know if whether or not David Meza had accomplices. They just say they know that David Meza was the man who kidnapped him and who pulled the trigger. I would assume they've tested the bandana for some kind of DNA to maybe match with, well, I guess they probably don't have David's remains, but they could probably find family members with all the genealogical testing we have nowadays. So I don't know if they've run it or test the bandana, or if that's one of the pieces they say, yep, that connects him to the murder, and they're just not saying it. I don't know, but they are confident, I guess, that they found out who did it. And for what it's worth, it sounds like Matt Chase's family believes this as well. The fact that David Meza was shot and killed 2 days later has opened up some speculation. Like, for example, was this maybe, because he was young, he was 20 years old, was this like a gang initiation thing? Because this sort of thing happens. Maybe David was sort of ordered to do all of this, right? Maybe there was someone there with him sort of watching it all, and watching David work. And maybe that's who left the bandana. We don't know. Maybe the gang felt that David was going to talk, say something he shouldn't say to reveal that the gang was involved in this murder. And maybe that was why he was killed. Was he killed by his own gang? Was he killed by a rival gang? It's not clear, or it's not really known. Was this something he was just doing on his own to impress the older gang members? Even though this case is closed, and even though it's solved, there is still a lot of openness to it. A lot of why, how, there's a lot of iffy things. For example, the car. The car was found within, I guess, a mile or two of where Matt was initially kidnapped. Now, I would think, and this is just me speculating, I would think people would have noticed this red vehicle that police had put out to everyone to see if they could find. I would think someone would have found that car within a day or two if it was so close to where he was kidnapped. but it was found 3 weeks later. And mind you, David Meza at this point, he's already been dead for basically 3 weeks himself. So did someone have access to the car and put it there for it to be found? It's just, I don't know. So there's just like a certain amount of closure, but not enough. I mean, I hope the family has some kind of closure. I'm just thinking from my true crime brain, like, there just seems to be, something just seems to be, I don't know, nagging at me. That there is more to it or more people involved. But again, I don't know. You know, what's super terrifying about this is, I think, going to an ATM at night in general is just like, even today, still terrifying. But especially back then, like you didn't really have the technology we have nowadays with the better cameras and all that. So I have personally always avoided going to the ATM at night. I would always, whenever I needed one, which I haven't needed to use an ATM in God knows how long. But I would always go like midday, and I would go to a drive-up ATM. That way I could speed away if someone comes running up to me. But yeah, it's just scary to figure, like, you know, Matt was there just in a completely empty parking lot, just him in the car, walking up to this lone, you know, poorly lit, probably ATM, and without thinking or knowing that there was someone right there watching him and waiting. And to think that could happen to anyone, and has happened to many people, and could still happen nowadays. It's just scary. I don't like people. I just hate people. I don't trust people. This is why I don't leave my house. But anyway, true crimeers, that is it for this case. I hope you found it interesting. As usual, I have tons more cases here on this channel for you to watch. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe. I try to post at least 4 new true crime stories, which is just one single story, a week, 2 long-form ones, and then 2 short-form ones. And then I'll post compilation videos from my TikTok page as much as I can to get all my videos over here. I'm getting close to the end, I think. Maybe, possibly not. I don't know. So yeah, please subscribe. Please hit the notification bell. And also, please follow me on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. It's all listed in my link tree below in the description. If you have a case you would like me to cover, just email me. My email is listed below and in the link tree. Go to my link tree, look in my crimerer case list, and scroll through it to make sure the name that you want me to cover isn't already there. If it isn't, then email me the name, where it happened, and when it happened, and I will add it to my list eventually. If you do see the name, please don't email it to me. I pick the cases I cover at random, so the case I'm going to cover will get covered. I just don't know when. I try to be fair, because at this point, 90% of the cases on there are from you guys. So I just pick them as I come across them, and then I cover it. If you would like to support me in any way, I do sell merch, also in the link tree below. We sell like just basic t-shirts and hoodies and a wine glass, things like that. And we do ship internationally. It's all made by my buddy Adam, and he does all the shipping and everything himself too. So major props to him. Lastly, if you have a Discord account and you want to join my server, it's also in my link tree. Please be over the age of 18, otherwise you will be kicked out. It's just a fun, very chill place. It's not a crazy Discord. It's usually relatively quiet for the most part, but we still have fun. All right, true crime-a-roonies, that is it for this video. So, until the next time... What? Words are hard. I gotta end the video with my signature goodbye.